Hey dudes, it's New Music Friday time. And you know what? It's just in time because we have the holiday weekend. And by holiday, I am referring to 420. So, anyway, let's talk about some new records that came out this week on Friday. First and foremost, we're starting with Tunde Adebimpe and the album The Black Bolts. Now, if you are familiar with Tunde's work with TV on the radio, you'll know that they produced several albums, EPs, singles, the whole nine, for the better part of a decade as a band. And then in 2014, 2015, they went on a extended hiatus. At that time, Tunde kind of branched out, started a whole acting career, recorded some music with some different projects, but nothing solo and nothing with TV on the radio. That is until last year. They did TV on the radio, did some reunion shows, and now this summer they'll be doing a reunion tour where they'll be headlining some dates. They'll also be opening up for LCD Sound System on some dates, so you can just look that up online and see when they're playing. However, to get back to the matter at hand, The Black Bolts, this is Tunde's debut solo album. And, right from the jump, it sounds a lot like a TV on the radio album. And really, that should be no surprise. You're getting some alternative rock, some sort of like synth bass led tracks, right out of the gate. And then it kind of moves along, and there are some near the back half of the record, there are some tunes that are like, okay, wow, this is like maybe a song that I wouldn't expect, to hear, or like the inclusion of like a pedal steel guitar right at the end, which I freaking love a pedal steel guitar. So anyway, solid record from Tunde. If you like TV on the radio, then I think this is kind of a no-brainer. But if you're still holding out hope for alternative rock that sounds like some stuff from like the late 2000s or maybe the early 2010s, then hey, this might be something for you. A new album from a Portland, Oregon outfit, Quickly, called I Heard That Noise. So Quickly is a band. However, the lead, brain trust behind the band is named Graham Johnson. And as I understand it, he's the one doing the bulk of the production, kind of orchestrating these tracks together. And I'm going to be honest, I think it sounds really, really great. If any of you out there are familiar with Feeble Little Horse, Quickly very much reminded me of that, but different, right? I mean, there's a male singer here, okay, like that's an obvious difference. However, the musical stylings and, taking, all these different instruments, orchestrating them together, and then including, some little hits of like noise or like sound or like tape modulation, and like putting those in there just perfectly. They're just these perfect little hits, throughout the album. And another thing that I noticed during the whole run through of I Heard That Noise was the incredible use of musical dynamics. And if any of you were ever in like middle school band and you had to learn what a fortissimo and a pianissimo are, they're in here. And I'm going to be honest, modern music makers do not use these easy tools enough, because they really add a whole new depth and they add a whole new layer to your music. And so maybe that's some free advice for somebody out there. Learn what a pianissimo and a fortissimo is. That's just like grade school level stuff there. But anyway, really, really love this album. It's, kind of psychedelic pop, maybe you're like chamber pop, but regardless of that, it's this really intricately woven tapestry of sounds that come together, they coalesce in a beautiful way. Little Barrie and Malcolm Cato with the album Electric War. Little Barrie is a London-based three-piece band. They've been around for more than a decade at this point. They put out I believe they put out their first full-length record back in 2011. That's when I saw them. As far as I'm aware, I saw them play their first U.S. live show back in 2011 at Lou Fest, if anybody remembers that. Back then, they were sort of this like surf rock, kind of like a harkening back to like the 60s. So doing like some surf rock, it was a little psychedelic, it was a little bluesy, but they were doing this like really vintage inspired sound. Skip forward, a dozen years, and now they've really locked in on this like psychedelic blues sound that is being led by the guitar player, and he is just sort of going through these passages while the rhythm section, Malcolm Cotto on drums, and then unfortunately I'm unaware of the bass player's name, but they're sort of leading the groove. And let me tell you, as soon as a track starts on this record, I feel like I was being like pinned down, and I was in. I was just like, oh my gosh, they're not letting me up for air for a second. The guitar playing is incredible. It's incredible. And then, like I said, the rhythm section is just holding these tracks together. And they're not skipping a beat. They sound incredible. So if you're interested in any of that sort of stuff, if you're interested in like some modern psych rock, if you're interested in some blues rock, this is really some of the best stuff I've heard in any time recently. Wiz Khalifa with Cushion OJ 2. Depending on when this gets posted, 420 has either not happened yet or it's already happened, in which case, smoke them if you got them. It has been well over a decade since the original Cushion OJ mixtape, which is a classic. I think anyway. I think it's a modern classic. I mean, not just for like, the holiday 420, but I do think it's a classic of just like stoner hip hop at large. I think Wiz Khalifa really, he had already done several mixtapes by this point, but I do think with Cushion OJ really stands above the rest for that time. This came out before Rolling Papers and all that. So now we have Cushion OJ Part 2, and just like a classic stoner, Wiz is like a decade late in delivering this. But you know what? We got it. And I'll say it's a little bloated. We're at 23 tracks. One of those is like a bonus track. So really it's 22 tracks. And I don't think Cushion OJ Part 2 really hits its groove until we get to about a third of the way in the record with What's Happening, which, great track. I love that. And then from that point, we get Red Eye, My Influence right after that too, which those two tracks, Red Eye and My Influence, those were made for the Blunt rotation. So you can just add those to the playlist. And then Hit It Once, that closes out the album. Great stuff. Lot of really good features on the record. Larry June is incredible, and he does, you kind of hear him coming in and out of the track, sort of doing these interludes, somewhat throughout the album, and that's good. But he's also featured on a track. Currency, longtime Wiz Khalifa collaborator, he sounds great as well. There are several others too, but some of the features at the top of the record from OT Genesis, from Gunna, I'm going to be honest, didn't really do much for me. Anyway, I really had fun with Cushion OJ Part 2. I love the first one, but still, this is good. And according to Wiz Khalifa, we'll get the third installment about 10 years from now, so stick around for that. Anyway, that's all I have to talk about this week. There's also a new record from Julian Baker and Torres, which I really did like a lot. It's a, the duo come together and do like a classic country record. It's like if those two, did like Waylon and Willie, but it's Julian Baker and Torres. I was not expecting that. I thought that, since they're both kind of in like an alt country singer-songwriter folksy lane, I thought it was going to be more in that direction, but no, it sounds like they're doing a classic country record, and it sounded great. So anyway, that's that. Hope you enjoy. Let me know what you're listening to. Let me know what you like. And I will see you later. Take care and happy holidays.